Hey everybody, welcome back to the Union 0430, episode number 2 of season 2, episode 52, but number 2 of season 2. If that's my Chrissy Snow impression. And if you don't know who Chrissy Snow is, you're obviously way too young. We've got a real good guest on tonight, Matt Pomeroy, a local gun expert, shooting expert. I'll get into an introduction to him here just shortly. No Dave again tonight. His wife trumped him and took the computer. Feel free to send them all kinds of messages and make fun of them for that. But you do have the joy of having Philly down in Oshawa, Mark outside of the nation's capital, and Ryan down in Nova Scotia, with Matt Pomeroy coming to us all the way from Kingston, Ontario. So just down the road from me. So Matt, thanks for coming on, boys. Good to see you again. So I gotta do this though, because we got to do an introduction to Matt, and he's a bit of a big deal. And I can't even remember everything. So bear with me while I read this off. So Matt Pomeroy, which I did notice, the president of the Kingston and District Trap, Skeet, and Sporting Clay Club, National Skeet Shooting Association Level 1 instructor, director of gunning for the Ottawa Valley North American Versatile Hunting Dog Association, the launching member of the Eastern Ontario Youth Hunting Collaboration, avid bird hunter and target shooter, and trainer of versatile champion German short hair pointers. That's quite the hockey sock full of qualifications, Matty.
Hey, that's real kind. Thanks for the invite, guys. Glad to be here.
No, and just all around good guy.
And an all around good guy. That's right. Well, I've known Matt for a few years now. Good friend. We've shared a few pops over the years and a few laughs. So I thought it'd be great to get you on, Matt, for the simple reason that we've done this show for over a year now, and we've talked about. I think we've really just brushed on it, on the importance of shooting and having a gun fitted for you, and tips and tricks to shooting. And we are a show which seems now that we're getting a lot of newcomers, and not just, kids, but adults that are starting to get into the sport of waterfowling and shooting and going to the clay and skeet ranges and stuff like this. So obviously, when you've been shooting for a long time, you get into your rut and you know what works and what doesn't work for you. But there's always some little tips and tricks that people like you can pass on that'll make us more efficient and more ethical in shooting, right? So I thought it'd be an awesome opportunity to have you to come on the show. So here we are.
Right on. I think so. Thanks for having me on, guys. I look forward to helping promote our sport, helping promote our heritage of hunting, and I think the more of these things we do to get some more shooters involved, the better we'll all be. But let me just say little hats off, first of all, to I know our neighbors to the south in the US of A just tapped off Memorial Day weekend last week. And I think a little hats off to our veterans, both south of the border and north of the border. Without Absolutely. You guys and gals, none of this is possible. So cheers to you.
Cheers.
Cheers to that. So let me go through some of the things that I see most often. And what I get is why do people maybe try hunting and then stop hunting? Or maybe why do they try shooting and then stop shooting? And I think if our group of hunters or our group of recreational shooters was able to do a better job of retaining the people that said, for one moment in their life, that said, hey, I'm interested in this. That seems like a neat thing to do. If there's anything that we can do to enhance that first experience, that first year in the field or at the range, I think what happens is we create a bit of a sticky game that says, I want to keep coming back to it. We can probably, everybody here on this call can probably talk about their most favorite hunt in their first year of hunting that likely resulted in some animals in hand, right? Or you went to the range and you actually hit the targets, and you've got to create those wins for people, or they won't stop. They won't keep coming. Like, they won't keep coming back. And so what I've been on is a bit of a mission for decades now to say, I want to make sure that every single person who's got an interest in this gets a couple, like you said, tips and tricks to make sure that the balance is swung in their favor, so that they keep coming back. So I'll just share a couple things. Feel free to jump in, guys. Here's what I see. When folks are shooting, is usually all eyes are on them, right? When you're at the target range, you think everyone's watching, and the nerves are up a little bit. And if they don't start breaking those targets, they'll get a little anxious about things, and the pressure builds, and then they're not going to break targets. Then they just say, well, that was fun today. I got to shoot a gun. I got to cross that off my bucket list, but I think I'll go do something different now. And kind of same thing with hunting. If the days aren't as cold when you have a boat full of ducks. So if you can get a couple ducks in that boat, it seems to be a little bit better. How I got into this was right out of the gate. I remember my first shotgun ever, and I got really excited when I hit some targets, and I got really kind of thoughtful about, why did I miss that? Like, how can you hit 10 in a row and then miss 2? Like, what's the point of that? Like, what happened on those other 2 when you can't think of anything you did differently? And so, like anything we get interested in, you start learning, you educate yourself, you find resources. You'll go down some trails that you shouldn't have walked down, just to find out that, okay, maybe that book wasn't right, or maybe that YouTube channel wasn't right. But then with 20 some years experience now, I've got a pretty good map of trails and road maps that I can head down and check things out. There's 3 things that I think we could chat about tonight and spend a bit of time on. And one of them is on gun fit. So making sure that firearm is right for you, and I can chat about that for a little bit. Another one is understanding different lead types. And some people just go shoot, and that's fine. But I think if you go and just shoot, but you have an understanding of what you're doing with different lead types, that can make a big difference. And then kind of that moment of impact of, when the actual shot is happening, what are your eyes doing? Where are you focused? And how do you maintain real strong focus on an animal or a target? And I've got a couple of tips and tricks for those things. So you guys let me know which way you'd like to go.
I think, and fellas, jump in here if you want, but I think starting off on one of the most important things, and that's making sure that you have a gun properly fitted to you is where you start. I know that it sometimes you don't have a choice, because I know, like, my first shotgun, it was handed down to me from my grandfather, and that was what I had, and I wasn't going to the store to get properly fitted. So, but fellas, chime in if you want.
My first shotgun was a 20 gauge bolt action, and it was a loaner. A guy lent it to me, and he said, when I wanted it, he said, I'll come get it. I must have had that shotgun for 7 or 8 years when I was a teenager, and it had a cut down stock, so it was meant for him, who was shorter. I was actually taller than this guy. He was in his 40s or 50s at the time. Yeah, it was meant for him, but I did cut my. I think I cut my lip a couple times just because of the short.
Yeah, it's short that popping up on you. Eh?
That stock was right, but for an old bolt action, I got quite a few. Like in Newfoundland, I got quite a few grouse with that. And quite a few flying too, so it still fit me in that way, as in I could shoulder it and put a bird down with no technical shooting experience whatsoever, other than just shooting at things.
Yeah.
My first was a Kui 840 20 gauge, which I still have to this day.
Yeah, right.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah. Killed a turkey with it a couple years ago.
Well, I was an 870, which had, I would say, it had a cut down barrel, so it was like probably a 16-inch barrel. It looked like more like a home defense shotgun than anything you've ever seen in that line. But
I love it.
Yeah. So, but it got the job done. Anything inside 15 yards. It was a great water SWAT gun for a young teenager. So,
Well, and that's kind of the fun stuff, right? Just getting out there and getting a crack at something with whatever you got. What'd you have, Damien?
So my first one actually was built when Cooey was still being built in Ontario before Winchester bought them out. So that's how old my gun was. So it was bought in '56, and it was a wedding gift to my grandfather. So so even when Cooey was still being made just outside, it was just outside.
Coburg.
Yeah, it was Coburg, right? Yeah. So not far down the road from us right here. So yeah, so the Cooeys and those alterations to guns, yeah. Fun.
Yeah, so here there's a couple really good books out there. This one here I was going to show you. And you don't have to get technical with this stuff. You can go find anywhere, but it's called the Stock Fitter's Bible, Roland Oswald. There's another one here, Shotgunning Art and Science by Bob Brister. Like, this one's been around forever. And so if you go in there on the gun fit part, so what it talks about is how insanely crazy this can be if you really choose to think about it, but then also how simple we can be. And I think for any group, we want to keep it simple, because the minute you start using too many technical terms and too many things that you can't shift and adjust, people are just going to say, well, that sounds odd, and they're going to leave again. So there's a number of different measurements on a gun, right? We've heard some of the most common ones. We've heard length of pull. So Mark, that would have been your issue, right? So cut down the stock, length of pull. You would have seen cast on or cast off on the angle of the stock. There's actually there's a particular angle of the way the butt plate is cut. There's a particular angle to the way that the comb drops, and all of the different kinds of things. Length of pull, I think I mentioned. So from the back of the stock to the front of the trigger, and all of those things are really important. Kind of. A lot of them are really important for comfort. So Mark, you mentioned a little slap in the cheek, right? That's a telltale sign that you had a gun that was a little bit too small for you. Right. It's not the only reason you get slapped in the cheek once in a while, but that's one of them. The most important measure is one called drop at comb. So if you took a shotgun and laid it on your counter, laid it on a very flat surface, and then took a tape measure kind of right in the middle of your stock and said, what is the distance from the table back up? Probably 1.5 inches or something like that. That's your drop at comb. And there's a reason why that is super important. There's a reason why length of pull really isn't that important. Like if you go get Chris, you go get a custom fit gun right now to fit you today in your t-shirt, have fun shooting that and thinking it's going to be fitting properly in November when it's -30 and you're shooting some divers, right? It's just going to be different. Mm-hmm. But that drop at comb is really important. And I'm going to talk about kind of the sight picture on a gun. And when people just hear this, sometimes they hear it for the first time and go, oh, okay, I kind of think about it. I think of that. We've got a quick picture I can show you if you want in a second. And so what that drop at comb does, that affects how you see down the barrel. Everything else you can compensate for. It's too short, it's too long. You can compensate for that. Cast on or cast off, you can compensate for that. It doesn't fit just quite right. You can kind of smush your head into a spot where you're making that gun fit. It's not ideal, but you're still going to hit your target. But drop at comb is remarkably important. So are you guys, what do we got here? Right-handed shooters or left-handed shooters?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm a right-handed shooter as well. So as a right-handed shooter, so here's one of the things that I watched this from duck hunting buddies, and without even seeing them shoulder the gun, if I watch them shoot ducks in the blind and I see this following pattern, I can bet you a nickel they've got a drop at comb issue. So And you know, here's part of the story, right? We go to the duck blind, and 8 ducks come in that day, and 4 ducks come in from our left and 4 ducks come in from the right. And what did we do? Well, we shot 5 of them, and we think we're superheroes because we're going home with 5 ducks, right? Candidly, they are probably so close to shots. We probably should have gone home in 6 shots. Not that we always do that, right? But, and here's what happens is every single duck that's coming left to right, so coming from your left to your right, ends up in your boat or ends up in your blind. Why is that? Because you've had an unimpeded vision of that bird. So nothing that you're doing with that shotgun, like, so think about where the shotgun is. It's over here on your right-hand side. The duck's coming in over here. At no point is that shotgun in the way of the view of the duck.
Mm-hmm.
Change the scenery and have the duck coming in from the right-hand side, and you've got your shotgun here. What happens is the duck is going to actually pass. It's going to be flying right, or your eyes are, sorry, going right over the barrel of your gun. And so if you have a drop at comb issue, what happens is you're not actually, you can't see that duck coming from left or right. But you did see it. So what did you do? Well, what you did is you, instead of having a firm back end where that gun is on your cheek, you peeked, you lifted your head up so you could see the duck. And if the minute you take your cheek off your gun, you have no idea where you're shooting. You might be in front of it, behind it, and there's no one in the world that knows that except for you, and not even you. This is the good Lord that let the pelts go somewhere, right? So that's kind of a really important thing to watch. When you put that gun up, it's got to find that weld right back here. Who shoots archery here? Right? So everybody's into archery a little bit.
Yep.
So archery, the key on that is finding that solid anchor point, the exact same spot on your face every time. Guys will use like a kisser button, right? That hits their lip, or they'll use something that touches under their nose in the string, so they're at the same spot every time. You've got to do the same thing with the shotgun. So when you put that piece up, the only thing you can really anchor is your cheekbone, and we all have different cheekbones. So that's why my gun might not fit you guys. It's got nothing to do with height, size, weight, build, whatever. It's got everything to do with your face structure and how it kind of sets in with your eyes. So if your gun is too high and it's covering your eye, you actually can't see. I'm going to share. Can I share a picture with you? Is that okay?
Yeah, do it.
Okay.
You
So
do
I'm
well
gonna
with
show you.
visual aids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, you've got to enable the screen sharing for me.
Oh,
Yeah, that's right.
well,
So we'll get.
This is going to be a first for
yeah.
Understood Waterfowl podcast.
All
Yeah,
right.
we've never had a guest capable like this. This is
Yeah.
earth-shattering.
Yeah,
You're
this
reaching
is
the limits.
Okay.
So listen, talk amongst yourself while I try to figure this out.
I'm just gonna say, does Damien know how to do this?
Yeah.
Hey, so while we're doing that, have you guys ever tried one of those eye dominance tests?
Yeah.
Right. So how did you do it?
I put my finger up against like a still object, lined it up, and then you would close this eye and see if your finger moved, vice versa.
Yeah.
The finger that would determine whether it was your dominant eye or not.
Okay. So those are all really good methods and they all work. I'm going to get you to try one other thing, and that is to try a dynamic version. So when you hold your finger out, there's nothing moving, right?
Mhm.
And you can, that's a good way of doing it. And it's probably accurate, but you do a dynamic version of this, and I'll show it to you in just a second. So the dynamic version of this, what it does, it creates some motions, and your brain might actually, your eyes might work differently when things are moving. Right? So a little bit of excitement, and all of a sudden that eye dominance can change. I'll see if I can back up and do this right. So what happens here, so what I'm doing right now is I'm going to point my middle finger right at my camera. Okay. And I'm just going to kind of go back and forth like this. Where's my finger coming up under? It's coming up under my right eye every time, right? Under this eye. So that means with movement, I'm right eye dominant. It's a neat way to try it. So try it with your buddies. Now, I'll tell you, kids, if they're not through puberty yet, their eyes will be left one year, right the next year. It's a really challenging thing for them. So to help them figure that out. How's that sharing going, Dave? Maybe?
I think I
Back in
got
5
it.
minutes.
I think I got it, but just check.
Oh, okay,
Matt.
not yet. That's all right. And so what happens is if your left eye, if you're right eye dominant, this eye is telling you how to hit that bird. It's telling you how to hit that target. Your left eye is just kind of along for the show. But if you all of a sudden go up and you pop your gun in front of your right eye, we all have done the dominance test. When you close your eye, your right eye, where does that, your thumb's on the light switch, right? And where does it go? It goes about 4 feet to the left, doesn't it? So that's what their sight picture will be on a bird if you impede the vision of your right eye. So you want to make sure that you're not doing that. Here's a neat way to do this. And so this is what you can go back and do. You can go to your mirror and take your favorite shotgun, close your eyes, get up there and put it right in your face like you're going to shoot, and then open your eyes and look right down the barrel in the mirror. And if you can't see your right eye sitting on top of that barrel, you know you've got a drop at comb issue. If your eye's sitting perfectly on top of the barrel, then you got a drop at comb that fits you, which means that when you pull that gun up, doesn't matter what that bird's doing, left, right, behind you, in front of you, you're always going to see that bird all the time with your dominant eye. If you get up there and you see this, there's your gun, you know that now your left eye is taking over, and any target coming in from the right-hand side is either going to cause you to miss 4 feet to the left, or you're going to peek your head up to take a look at the target, and you won't be able to hit it. So it's an easy exercise to go do in the bathroom mirror with your favorite gun. So it was kind of funny. After I'd started learning this, I actually went back to my very first shotgun, and I'm like, I never did this. How come I was able to hit things as a kid? And I'm going to tell you something, a little bit of good fortune. The gun that I first shot with actually fit me. So the other 6 shotguns that I had in the closet, all of them needed adjustment. But that particular gun fit me. And so I think, why do I like this sport so much? Because the first time I picked a shotgun up, I could see the target clearly, and it tended to break when I shot. And that's not anything other than being able to see that target. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Clear as mud.
Try it now, Matty.
Sure. Yeah, okay, here, check this out, screen 2. Okay, so here's an example of, is that sharing right now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is Benelli Super Black Eagle 2. I love shooting with this gun, but when I would use this as an example, that is the stock setup. That's right from the factory. That's it, ready to go. So when I pull that gun up and actually mount it properly on my face, like, there's a bunch of other issues, like my head's canted a bit too far, but don't worry about that. I can still hit the birds. But look what eye is looking at you, right? My left eye is staring at the target, which means everything is going to be off. Every lead picture I see is going to be screwed up. Let me show you. I'll show you picture 2. Believe it or not, that's the same gun.
Okay.
Right? So my eye is sitting right on top of that barrel now.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I did is, the Benellis, they're kind of a fun field gun, right? But the Benellis have those little gel combs, and I actually put on the 1/2 inch extra comb for me that allowed me to see down the barrel properly.
Okay.
So there's an exercise. Go back, put the gun in the mirror, and if you see this, great. We got to find a different reason why you're missing. But if you don't see that, then you got to fix it, right? Because otherwise, or every bird coming from your right hand side, you're gonna impede your view with. So
Matty,
how do you fix that? Yeah.
Sorry, I just want to jump in here. So we had talked about
please.
this about, I don't know, a couple weeks ago. We were talking about this, fellas, and I don't know who it was, but somebody had asked, do you close an eye when you shoot, or do you shoot with both eyes open? Now,
I think I dropped out.
and I shoot with both eyes open, but that's just because that was just the way I was taught to shoot from the Army and stuff like that. So when I'm looking at your pictures, Matty, you've got both eyes open, Is that
100%.
yeah? So the reason why I have both eyes open is because I was trained always. You needed to be able to see what's coming off to your side,
Yep.
right? You don't want tunnel vision. When you're instructing somebody, are you totally taking them out of closing an eye? Are you saying, okay, listen, the days of
100%.
the days
Yeah.
of you closing one eye, those days are over now.
So if you guys all came in and we all proved that you were right-handed shooters and you were right eye dominant, we are leaving both eyes open all the time. It gives your brain that much more information, gives you much better depth perception and much more natural feel to a target. Now, so let's suppose, Damien, you came in, you're a right-handed shooter, and we figured out that you are totally either cross dominant, which
Yep.
means that both eyes kind of give information equally, or that you are left eye dominant. If I see a young shooter that's left eye dominant and right-handed, I try to do everything in my power to get them shooting left-handed. But sometimes when we've got a couple decades behind us, that's
Yeah.
a difficult thing to try and encourage someone to do, especially when they've got a closet full of guns that say I'm a right-handed shooter, right?
It's funny you bring that up. A friend of mine, a guy who I actually got into hunting, we've been long time friends and whatnot. I got him into waterfowl and he tagged along for a number of hunts. And then he's like, yeah, like I'm into this. Let's do this. So he did his courses, went and got himself a Beretta. I can't remember which model. I think it was like the Eureka 2 or something. He's left eye dominant, but he couldn't for the life of him grasp shooting off the left shoulder.
Yeah.
So through the course of time, he shot off his right shoulder and forced himself to use his right eye, and actually became a very proficient shooter in doing so.
What was he
Is that a
shooting?
common
Ducks,
thing?
geese, or targets? What was he doing?
Waterfowl.
Okay. So what if I come across, there's a solution to that, right? So first of all, if you do anything long enough, your body, so what has he tricked his body to do? He's tricked his body to say ducks. So he's left eye dominant, right? Let me just get this right. So left eye dominant. So ducks coming from the right-hand side, he needs like this little, I might get this wrong, but little wee lead. But ducks coming right to left, he probably gives him an 8-foot lead. That's what he's taught his body. So instead of giving a duck that would normally have a 4-foot lead on either side, left or right, he's probably taught himself to like triple the lead on birds on one side of his head and almost shoot at the other ones. And you can fool your body to do that, right? You can do that. So here's another way to handle that. So when you get a pair of glasses coming in, so if you're left eye dominant and bound, bent, and determined to shoot right, or if you're cross eye dominant, and by the way, these things, guys, they're remarkably common. I'm going to say that like 15% of everybody we know with a shotgun has some form of an eye dominance different than what their hand is shooting. That's just my experience. So what you need to do is you need to block the intake on that left eye. So again, I'm focusing only on right-handed shooters. So if you're left eye dominant and you want to shoot right, what you need to do is you need to impede the vision of your left eye so that your right eye takes over and will go hit the target. So how do you do that? Well, a really awkward way of doing that, and way of limiting your business, is just close your left eye. That's one way you can do it, right? That's one way you can get it done. Another way, and if you go to any skeet club or any National Skeet Shooting Association competition tomorrow, I bet you're going to see about 30% of the shooters, if not more, with some form of ocular occlusion or something that blocks their vision on their eye. So you'll see guys with like a piece of tape, right? You've seen that before, a piece of tape over their eyeball, over their glasses. And there's lots of different ways you can do it. So if you can occlude the view on that eye, then all of a sudden what you'll do is you'll just make sure your brain takes over. So the reason I like a piece of tape, and by the way, it doesn't have to be electrical tape. It could even just be like a piece of masking tape that still lets light in. So what happens is here is when, so I'm just going to put these on. So if I've got a piece of tape here, if the bird's coming in, I can see that bird the whole way until right when it gets in the shooting point, all of a sudden now I can't see it and my right eye is going to take over. So by only doing a small little occlusion as opposed to holding the eye shut, you get all kinds of vision. You get your regular peripherals. And yet at the moment that you're going to actually look at the target and shoot it, your right eye, the proper eye is going to be taken over. So that you always take hunting with you, right?
Look at that. Science.
Yeah.
Hey, Matt, just going back to shooting with one eye versus two eyes.
Yeah.
If you have somebody, let's say, who's been like, a waterfowler most of their lives, and then they join a shooting club and they want to get into competitive shooting, and you've noticed that this person, is a one-eye shooter. What kind of tips and tricks do you have for somebody who's trying to make the progression from shooting with one eye to train them to shoot with two?
Sure. So the last two things we'll jump back and forth here, but the one was focusing on the target, right? And so I think this will actually help with keeping both eyes open. Here's one of the challenges when we first learned to shoot. Here's what typically happens. Either A, it was a 22 rifle, right? And so that's point and shoot, which it does not matter what your eyes do. So if you're left eye dominant, but you still line up those two sights, right? Back sight, front sight, you're going to hit the target. So then what happens? What do we do when we take someone with a shotgun first? We typically line up a pie plate, set it in the field, say shoot the pie plate. It's the exact same thing as shooting a 22. Line up the beads on your shotgun or the rib, and it's kind of like turkey hunt at that point, right? Then what do we do? So we've all been to a skeet club before. We've been out in the field shooting targets. And what target do we shoot first? Well, we shoot. So who's shot skeet here? Has everybody shot skeet before? Okay. So low 7, right? So you're standing and on the 7 station, the one end of the horseshoe, and the target goes directly away from you. There's no lead on that gun. That is actually like, or on that shot, that's actually like kind of pointing and shooting, right? That's almost like hitting the pie plate because the thing doesn't move. You got to point in the right spot and you can get it right away from you. So what I like to do is I move shooters over a little bit and I move them in between station 6 and 7. And what we do is we shoot long incomers from high house. And so the very first thing that we do, so going back to how do we teach you to not close an eye, is it's going to sound funny, but we just stand there with no gun whatsoever. And I say, the target's coming from over here, real long, slow target, and break it in front of you. And you can see it all day long. So it doesn't seem like one of the fast ones, right? And so I just said, point your nose at the target the whole way. And you get them to do that 3 or 4 times. And it sounds goofy, but point your nose at the target. It is impossible to lose focus on the target. There's no need to close an eye. And they'll get really comfortable with seeing that target. And so that's kind of that first step. If you actually close your eye when you're looking at something straight ahead, kind of your nose gets in the way and other things, and it's not as comfortable. So I just say, what are you more comfortable with? Both eyes open, watching that target go across, or was it more comfortable squinting an eye shut? And they'll say every single time they'll say, well, both eyes open is more comfortable because you're not using any muscles to contract it, right? So that's how we start that piece. So then the next thing is we start to put something else in the way, right? So then we start to say, put your thumb up there, and just kind of make sure you're in front of that target the whole time. But don't take your eyes off the target. And people will really quickly go, okay, I get it. Without leaning into a shotgun, thinking I must close an eye to be on the rail, I can just focus on that, the thumb gun, or just focus on the target. And so before we even touch a gun, we're going to get rid of that misconception. You got to close an eye. Make sure though that you've figured out the dominant eye issue. Because if you really tell someone to close their eye that their brain loves getting information from, that's going to be a tough day for them. and then there's some
Matty,
different things you can go do.
when you come to, you know, you're starting to talk to people and teach them how to shoot and your tips and tricks. Listen, I'm pretty confident here to say that if you had a woman walk in and willing to take some lessons, the woman will be a lot more receptive to the tips and tricks that you're going to say, as opposed to a bullheaded male that, well, I don't need anybody to teach me how to shoot because I've been shooting forever. So when it comes to, and I, by no means am I saying that people are being ignorant or refusing the help, but you know, I'm sure you've come across the situations where people have been like, well, yeah, that's a little bit hokey, Matt. Like, come on now. Like, you want me to point my nose at the target and I'm not going to have a gun in my hands? Like, come on, buddy. Like, what are you smoking? You know, how do you talk to these fellas and say, listen, there's a process. Just
Sure. So here's the first thing is no need to share an opinion unless you've been asked for it. Right. So and this sounds funny, but my mission is not to go save people and teach them how to shoot straight that don't want to. You know, so one of the things that if we all went shooting tonight, I'm not going to say a thing unless you said before the round, I'm having trouble with that high house target. Can you help me out with it? Mm-hmm. I'll watch you like a hawk and I'll be prepared. If you ask me later what was going on, trust me, I will see these things and I'll have a couple notes for you over a beer. And that's not just a way to get a free beer from you, Dane. So, but I won't. So the first thing is you got to have a willing participant. Anybody who comes to my coaching classes, typically, not all the time, but typically has said, I think I've got room for improvement. Right. And so that usually you got a bit of a willing participant, but sometimes someone drags their buddy along and I wait to see if they don't want advice or a tip, then there's no point in me talking because it's not going to go. So what I'll have them do is I'll have them watch some others and then I'll have them maybe try it out. And I'll tell you something real quick, the kind of without any guns, this is kind of fun. So, and what I'll do is I'll have them recognize that they've made an error. The minute they recognize that maybe they're not doing this right, the door opens a little bit, you can get a really good student out of it, someone who wants to learn and educate. I talked about, so 3 things I talked about right at the top of the show here was gun fit, lead type, and then focus on a target. So let me just go to lead type for a second, because that's actually probably should talk about that before we talk about looking at the target or putting your thumb out there. So there's 3 basic ways you can shoot a flying target, and you need to know them all because they're all going to come in handy at some point. But I also think you need to understand which one is best, and in an ideal circumstance, which one is best. So this goes back to, and maybe just a tad more science, something we probably learned way back when, is so right now, if someone walked in on Mark's periphery and threw him a can of beer, I'm going to bet you he catches it like Jason Bourne, right? Not even looking at it, goes boom, and the beer's
It'd have to be a tea bag.
Teabag.
Right? So long time since we threw a beer match. Remember?
So why does that happen? Do you know why?
Squash reflexes.
So our eyes are focused on the fastest thing in our field of view. So whatever is moving fastest, your eyes are drawn to. Every single human that focused on the slow things got eaten by saber-toothed tigers. They're all dead. Okay. So every one of our ancestors has this, right? And we're there. And so understanding that, now let's talk about these 3 lead types. So there's 3 lead types that you'll see on lots of conversation about. One's called a maintained lead or a sustained lead. I'll come back to each of them. One's called a pull away, one's called a swing through. So what is a maintained lead? So maintained lead says this. So here's your target, right? So target's coming across. What you do is you insert your gun ahead of it and it stays the same pace and somewhere along the pattern you shoot it. How I like to think about it. So if you're merging on your favorite highway or interstate, what's your ideal speed? The exact same speed as the 18-wheeler, just 4 car lengths ahead of it, right? That's your ideal way to intercept a clean space onto the highway. That's a sustained lead. A pull away method means this. So that means that you went cranking onto the highway, looked in your rearview mirror and saw that you're just about to hit the truck. So you hammered the gas and pulled ahead, right? So you kind of point at the target's going this way and you point at the target and then pull away to make a lead. And then the next one is a swing through method, whereby the target's here, your gun's way back here, and you got to kind of swing through the target to find the right lead. So on those last 2 that I spoke about, when you're pulling your gun away from a target or you're swinging through a target, what is the fastest thing in your field of view, the target or your gun? It's your gun. So your eyes are naturally going to focus on your gun instead of the target. That's kind of like golf. You take your head off where the ground beneath your ball when you're swinging. You're probably gonna. We've all heard that, right? Keep your head down. Well, it's just maintaining focus on that spot you want to hit. The maintain lead method. What happens is the target and the gun will match speed, and it's much easier for you to pick up that piece. So, going back to this, maybe a long answer to your question: how do you get someone who's kind of cranky about hearing advice on how to shoot? So remember before I said you're going to follow that target on station kind of 6.5 with your nose, like literally throw a target and just watch it with your nose. Now we're going to replace that with your thumb. Like there's no intimidation, there's no gun going off. And all I say is put your thumb like 4 feet in front of that target or 2 feet in front of that target and stay at 2 feet in front of that target the whole way across the field. And so if you see this, if you see someone go out and their thumb looks like this going across the field nice and smooth, that means they are focused on the target. If you see this, where your thumb is jerking and it's moving around, what that's telling me is that their eyes are going from their gun to the bird and the bird to the gun and the gun to the bird. You're just joggling your mind. It's got no memory on where to shoot, and you pull the trigger, you might get it, you might not. So having that's kind of fun, because when I use that thumb gun piece, I've yet to have somebody come out and do it perfect the first time if they've never had a lesson. Everyone always, you say pull and the thing jerks. You go, well, why did it jerk? Your target was right there. And as soon as they catch themselves making that move, then they'll realize they need an issue and they want to have a conversation. So that's kind of where I go on those. I go to an obvious, the one thing about neat thing about humans is we're all very similar. Our human characteristics and our human reactions are all quite similar. So I know that if I take people there and they make a mistake, 99% of those folks want to learn how to fix that. Sorry, long answer to that one,
No,
but
it's
it's kind
good,
of
buddy.
important,
It's
right?
good.
So that maintain lead. So when you're skeet shooting and your gun's up, right, and you've got like all your guns already on your shoulder and you're saying pull. I've had some hunters come to me and say, well, that's not how you hunt. And I bet you I shoot 90% of my birds with my gun locked into my shoulder as they're coming into my decoys, right? It's not a surprise, right? You're ready. You see that target coming in a long way for 90% of our birds.
I would agree with that.
Right. So you get even on pheasants. So even like I've got a pointer, so he just sits there and you got all day to set up on a pheasant, right? And you go to the wind, you pretty much know which way the things are going to fly. It's kind of like shooting a stop sign, so not that hard. But even if you get a dog like I used to run a lab that would flush. He never pointed, right? He just flushed birds. But you can tell when your dog's getting birdie. And when your dog's getting birdie, you get your gun up, you get ready because you know something cool's about to happen. So where do you use a pull away shot or a swing through? Maybe on a bird that truly does surprise you, right? You're sitting there in your blind, kind of half sucking back a coffee, and that blue teal screams by, and you got to make up ground. So it's really good to know how to use those different lead types, but it's also good to know that, hey, I got to get a sustained lead, and I'm gonna slow everything down by matching my bird speed and my gun speed. Kind of a neat way to do it.
Yeah, like I'm pretty confident in my duck hunting ability or puddle duck hunting ability.
Yeah.
But for the life of me, when it comes to divers, buddy, I am horrible. Like I'm just throwing, it's just as well for me to throw the shells at the birds because I am not hitting, like I am not efficient. I'm not an efficient shooter when it comes to those divers that come screaming in right on top of the water. And then,
so here's a neat thing to note. If you have access to a gun club that shoots at night, shoots skeet targets at night, if you've got the right lights, so our Kingston club has, we do a night shoot every Wednesday night. And if you get the right lights, this is going to sound a little odd, but you can actually see your shot cloud. So if you get a club with nighttime, I've never been able to do this in the daytime ever. I don't think my eyes are I don't think any human eye could pick that up. But at nighttime with the right vision, you can actually see the shot cloud going at your target. Here's the one thing I'll tell you. 99% of all birds missed on a sporting clays range, when guys are actually holding their gun properly and shooting it right, or 99% of all ducks missed are missed where? Behind the bird, probably because they didn't have enough of a lead.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you get a diver out there 35 yards going east to west on you, you got to have a huge, like if they're not stopping for your decoys sometimes, right? They're sailing right through those suckers.
Yeah.
And you got to have a big lead on those. Very rarely do we miss in front. Very rarely. So most misses are from behind.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how many guys, like I do a little bit of guiding and stuff for ducks. You'd be surprised how many guys will miss cripples.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny, like generally, like if we're doing a diver shoot, we'll have like the little kind of pre-shoot debrief like in the morning. And I'll tell guys divers just don't fucking die. They just don't.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll tell guys you're going to cripple birds. Like it happens. Like don't beat yourself up if you didn't kill it. Like it's 1 to drop it and 2 to kill it. That bird would be laying on the water, head up, whatever the case may be. And I've watched guys 15 yards, 20 yards, completely miss divers. And I'll tell them the biggest thing they don't compensate for is the spread of your shot. Mm-hmm. And they'll shoot over the bird every fucking time. They'll put two pellets into it if you're lucky. I'll tell them, draw a line from the brain down the neck through the breast to where it meets the water, and put your bead on that line where it meets the water, because that will put the majority of your shot pattern into the head, the neck, and the breast and stuff, and kill the bird. Even shooting still targets, you'd be surprised how many people can still miss a still target without proper gun fit, proper sight picture, and so forth.
I'll bet you a lot of those guys too have, if you look, so what's the number? If you've got a drop at comb that's in your eyeball, remember what I said you're going to do? You're going to cheat. You're going to peek your top head up. Yeah. The minute you poke your head up, your gun's shooting high. Right. So especially when you're aiming, if you're aiming a gun that doesn't fit you right, and you cheat and you bring your head up so you can see the duck and the beads on it, you're going over it every time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. You made a great point there. That's super.
Keep your effing cheek against the gun.
Yeah.
Be one with the stock.
Be one with the
Absolutely.
Be
but
one.
that's, and Phil, you sort of touched on a good thing, and I know with divers, you are right. Like, you will have cripples with divers. It's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
You're not always going to have a clean shot. But when it comes to shooting, Matt, and I know all the boys will agree, you want to do it as efficiently as possible. Not only do you want to save on the ammo, but you want to dispatch that bird as ethical as possible, right? You don't want that thing flopping around.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So when it comes to these tricks and these tips that you're talking about, the ultimate goal is that these, whatever it is, be it clay pigeons or real birds, you want it, and I'll use the word destroyed because I just can't think of a better word, but you want those birds destroyed, or those clay,
Yeah,
as efficiently as possible, right?
for sure you do. Yeah. And that focus piece, I remember my very first snow goose hunt in Saskatchewan, and it was amazing, right? It was just like something I'd never seen, never experienced before. And the sky is literally just filled. And yet it's funny, right? You've still got to pick out one bird, and you got to shoot one bird. And so the guy that would kind of set the day up for us, he was sitting beside me, and he looks over and he goes, "Would you quit shooting the snow geese?" And I kind of looked at him. I said, "I thought we were here to shoot snow geese." And he goes, no, shoot the dark ones, right? So shoot like the speckled bellies or the blue bellies. That's because they taste better. And I remember thinking, there's actually a difference in the birds up there. And he made me stop, slow down, and then start focusing on the birds. And they just popped out of the sky, right? They just popped out, and all the white ones I just put out of my brain. And anything with a speckle or a bit of darker color on it, they're the ones that were my target. And that day got me on to something where I was like, okay, that laser focus on an animal when you're shooting it is really important. Like, so when you're shooting anything, right? You're shooting a deer, you don't aim for the lung area. You aim for a single hair in that lung area, right? You aim for a single crease or something that you go aim small, miss small.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that we use, and I use it all the time with our youth shooters as well, and because we have a lot of fun with this, and we kind of test it as we're going through the field, whether it's a game bird or it's a waterfowl, they all have their mouths open and closed. And so I will ask them, I'll say, was your bird's mouth, be it bill or beak, open or closed when you shot it? And the kids that get the focus, they can tell you mouth or beak closed, bill closed when I shot that one.
Wow.
And they'll be right every time because they're that focused on the target. And the kids that can tell you what the beak or the bill was doing on those birds, they do a better job of hitting animals because their focus on them is just so intense. When you're shooting targets, so this is a yellow target, but they got these little rings on them, right? And I remember I had a guy instructing me some time ago, and he said, you gotta be able to count the rings on the target in flight. And I was like, this guy's out to lunch. You can't count the rings on the targets, moving too fast. And I promise you, if you've never done this and you go to the range tomorrow, you won't be able to do it. But if you keep trying it, sometime this month you'll go, I can't believe it. I just counted 4 rings on that target and I broke it. Like, your focus will totally change if you can pick something really small, even on a target or even on a bird, and it'll help along the way.
Ryan,
a
I
good-
wanted. Oh, sorry, Phil. Ryan, I wanted to go back to when Matty was talking about being out in Saskatchewan and doing his hunt. Now, when you've guided out west, and listen, I know that when you're working with Claudio and Ongeros, like, you're getting the full spectrum of hunter, right from the novice to a seasoned veteran, right? So as a guide, when you're sitting back, do you have to, like, have you had to give any hints or tips or anything like that when you've had to, you know, when fellas are missing birds or whatever? Have you had, because I know when we were out there, Daryl Gilbert done an awful lot of laughing at us on missing birds and stuff like that. So, and I know Daryl had to tell us things, right? So have you had to do the same thing?
The most common one I'd say is probably what Matt touched on, is like, you know, when you have like, you know, a volley of like upwards of 500 birds in a shooter's lap, you know, the sky it looks like a cloud of fog coming on you. Guys get really wide-eyed. They don't really know, you know, some guys just think they're going to pull the trigger and point their gun up and stuff's going to fall out of the sky. And it's just not the case. So there's that. But the other one, especially with snow goose hunting, is the distance. And snow geese tend to hang a lot too. Like they'll hang over high, they'll just kind of peek down. They'll stay at those 40, 50, 60 yard distances. And optically, a guy, you know, a 60-yard shot isn't a very, you know, an ethical shot, but, you know, we're giving these guys high quality ammunition. They're using high quality firearms, you know, and at a still target, like a snow goose when they're hanging, it's an extremely killable bird. So, I mean, there's that kind of thing. Give them the confidence, like, hey, you guys have the ballistics in there to produce results there. So there's a little bit of coaching like that, but I'd say the biggest one, we don't get too technical, but I can say it is, you know, as a guide, we take a lot of pride of how much we bring back to the outfit. And there's days where you've got 5 really good shooters in front of you and they make a good day look great. And then you might get 5 businessmen from New York who have been, or this is on their second waterfowl hunt in their lives, and they make a great hunt look average. So
Well, I think the biggest thing too, though, is guys that flock shoot. And like, you know, to being out west, Ryan, like you got those like Mondo flocks that are doing it dirty in the kill hole, and guys will just sit up and just start peppering the fucking sky. And it's like, yeah, I hit 1. Well, those birds were at 20 yards. Why didn't you hit 3? Or even get a fucking Scotch double and, you know, bag 4 and 3 shots, right? Like the biggest thing is like, yeah, you get those juicy birds coming in and they just flock shoot. And to, you know, echo what Matt said, like if you can't see the target, you can't hit the target. And I think that would be a fair analogy, right, Matt? Like
For sure.
Focus is like 98% of the fucking skill. If you can't focus on that target, if you can't see the target, you can't hit the target. And those guys that flock shoot, you know, it's just an exercise in frustration. Like, so they'll pepper the sky. Well, backpedal it here, sweetheart. Like, pick a bird. Like, even when they're at 100 fucking yards, pick that bird. As they work in, if your bird drifts off, you know, the other end of the shooting lane, pick another bird and keep your eye on that bird. And when it's go time, get up, shoot that bird, switch your focus to a next one that's also, you know, attainable, and shoot that bird. And, you know, if at that point, you know, they're out too far, don't waste the 3rd shot. But focus is the biggest priority.
I don't think like I don't think I purposely do that focus thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think I purposely, like in my brain, I'm going through a checklist of things that I need to do. But I know that I can think back. So I guess what I'm trying to get at, so for the listeners, if some of this stuff sounds like it's a little bit out there or anything like that, like I know how I set up. And I can think of birds that Mark and I have shot, that we've all shot together. And I know exactly how that bird, I can still remember how that bird came in. I can remember bringing my gun up, and I can remember pulling my trigger and the bird dropping. So if you can't remember that, then would it be a fair assumption to say that you're not focused? And I don't mean that you're purposely focusing and you're going through this checklist in your brain. But if you can't remember shooting that bird, then you're probably not focused. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, and you know, one of the things that I see is some guys can't see bands on geese,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so they're not focused on a bird. If you can't see the big shiny silver thing on a goose's leg as it's coming into you, you're not focused on the bird. You're focused on the flock. And
Yeah, good point.
and I've got, so like there's a funny thing, right? You could say increase your focus and look there. Even that's not, that looking at the foot of a goose is not the ideal spot to be focusing on, but at least you're starting to focus on a bird and say, look for some eye candy, right?
That's a good point. You know what?
Yeah.
And so I said that I'm focused, but now that you've brought that up, I've hunted with Mark and Ryan, and we've hunted ducks, and I've heard Ryan say that's a wonky duck coming in there, meaning that it's an off duck, like it's not a pure mallard. There's something there's something different about that mallard that's coming in, right? And I don't see it, but yet he does. Or Mark will say there's something wrong with this bird. This bird isn't a mallard, or it isn't a black duck that's coming in. So obviously those guys are focused, because I definitely don't see it.
Part of this is I never want the advice I have to become a chore. It's supposed to be fun. So I actually think that looking at what the bird's bill is doing and understanding was it open or closed when you shot it is it's a fun way for you to go, was I focused on that? Looking for the eye candy in the sky, looking for the bands is a really fun way to build focus. Those are great ways to do that.
With that, I do have to preface this by saying using what's that crazy wonky lens that you use on your camera, Philly, that the
shot cam?
No,
zoom,
like a telescopic.
Yeah, that telescopic zoom on your camera, that doesn't count.
550 mil.
Yeah, because we know of people that's what they do, right? They sit down and they use their camera to pick out those birds with the bling on to them.
Let me share, just so in case somebody's listening and they go, oh my gosh, my gun doesn't fit, this stinks, I just bought it, what do I do now? There's like, these are all, they can be expensive shifts, or they can be really inexpensive. So I keep when I'm doing some shotgun coaching, there's some things online. You go to Amazon today, they're called Bear Tooth. There's some other things called rapid combs. All they are is essentially a neoprene sleeve with some foam in top that you can change the height of your gun. Very rarely do I catch someone with a comb that is too high. Most of them are designed for whatever reason to be too low. And so to have, if I was an outfitter, I'd have a bunch of those there. And, maybe not if it's a 1 day hunt, let the guys go do what they want to do. But if you've got guys in for 3 and 4 and 5 days, I'd actually take a minute and go, hey, let's just see how your gun fits you. Right. And here's a $25 solution that we got off Amazon, and that you can make them, because I've seen guys put those things on and it happens overnight. They can hit more targets because their eyes aren't occluded. So I wanted to make sure as we got started, there's some, if you want to start cutting your stock on your Beretta 696, that's a big ticket item. It's not a bad thing to do if that's what you're going to shoot birds with. But if you don't want to do that, just go buy one of these $25 solutions. They work absolutely great. I think before neoprene was really handy, you'd see the old coaches walk around with that green painter's tape and stacks of cardboard. And they just build your stock up. Looked like hell and didn't last. But there you go. My kids, they're all shooting competitive skeet. And I'm not about to go modify their stocks, because whatever I do this year is wrong next year. So we're using those Bear Tooth and Rapid Comb products, and they totally make a difference. And so as an outfitter, to make a good day, maybe even a little bit better, have a couple of those in your bag and just say, let's line them up and see how you're doing with them.
Matty, I've been really trying to figure out a way how I was going to break into the youth part of this,
Sure.
and then you done it nicely for me by bringing up your kids. And I know 2 sons and a daughter that are very, very active outside, archery, shooting, great kids. You are a very, very big ambassador for the youth, and especially in this area. I know you're a huge ambassador for getting the youth involved and teaching them properly safe handling of firearms and proper shooting and stuff. What have you seen in the last, let's say, 5 years with regards to kids and their interest into coming into shooting sports and ultimately, getting into hunting and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think it's first of all, it's really important. It's very rewarding. So I encourage everybody here, make a little list of the little people in your lives and invite them and their parents out for a shoot, have some fun. I don't care if it's in your backyard or wherever else. And because here's the ticket, right? Is none of these kids, if they happen to have a parent that doesn't have a license, they can't try this until someone puts their arm around them and says, come try it with me. Right. And it's I've probably got a lot of kids licensed and their parents aren't yet. And it's an amazing thing. So in our expansion of our club, one of the things we did a long time ago, we just said, hey, we want to get out in the community. We want to be out there, have a conversation with people and just see if we can build some interest. And so we had an opportunity to go to the local Boys and Girls Club on the spring sporting registration. So that's the registration where if your daughter wanted to go and play soccer or t-ball or baseball or dance class or karate or science camp or anything like that, you'd go there, and every one of these organizations was showcasing their work. And we had a couple of the guys say, what are you doing taking you're going to have a shotgun sport right there in front of like ballet and soccer? And I said, yeah, we are. And what we did is we put on a promotion. Right after the event, we put on an open house where we said everybody in the city can come out and shoot for free. Come give it a try. And so what we did is I spoke to a lot of the parents that were there, and in like a 6-hour span, it was the simplest collection of data ever. Collected 60 names of parents who said, I can't believe you're here. This is amazing. I want to give this a try. All the kids were into it too. I've yet to have a single negative feedback of someone saying, what are you doing here with guns at the kids sporting thing? It's been a remarkable feedback. Some of the other things that we've done are this Eastern Ontario Youth Hunt collaboration. And so what that is, we've taken some businessmen in town and some local organizations and said, our goal is to get as many kids licensed with their firearms license and their hunting license so they can go enjoy our sport. And check out this for a fun opportunity. So COVID has kind of beat it up this year, but we're going to get back to it as soon as we can. So once we had all the kids write us an essay, like a 1-pager to say why they want their hunting license, why do they want their firearms license. And then we had a committee that selected the kids, and the other kids that didn't get selected, we had them on a waiting list for the next year. So we did our very best, right? And it was kids aged from, we went as low as 12 and as high as, I think it was 18 years old was our oldest kid. After that, we said they're kind of adults, they can do their own or do a different format. And what the kids got was they got their firearms instruction, their hunting course instruction. They then got a sporting or a clay shooting day where they'd learn 3 hours on shooting skeet, 3 hours on shooting trap, 3 hours on shooting sporting clays. And these kids got so good. It was so well done. We then took them on some duck hunts, and we took them on some guided pheasant hunts. And the kids all got this. So their very first year, they had pheasant hunt under their belt, duck hunt or goose hunt. Wow. And they'd probably shot more targets than their parents had ever seen before, right? And we got a lot of them. A lot of those folks came back and became members of our club.
Absolutely.
And that was, I'll be honest, that's part of what we were trying to do. Delta Waterfowl, Ducks Unlimited, lots of those folks were on the line, and they said they gave all the kids free magazines for a year, free memberships, so that you get used to reading the Conservator, right? You're probably going to keep breeding that thing. And so, yeah, we have a really good program going, and we just, I miss it that we're not doing it right now. So we'll get back to it when we can, as soon as the government allows us. But I think, go back to, make sure you're introducing somebody to it, right? So I'm sure everybody on this call right now can probably remember their first hunt and how important the kill was, right? It's not really about that anymore, is it, guys? Right? It's about going out there, having a good time, having a good laugh. And to watch now, if I can take some youth shooters out, I've given up my opening day probably for the last 3 years. Not that I've given it up, but I don't hold a gun because I'm mentoring a student who's there, and they get to shoot the ducks. And I'll run my dog, and we have the great old time. And there's nothing more fulfilling than that. So I encourage you all to do it.
Yeah, and I think so. I know Ryan and Mark, they have in the past very, very big participants in the Upper Ottawa Valley youth program. Mark's still involved with it. Like you said, COVID sort of put a screw to that there over the last year. But it is, and something that we talk about on this show a lot is that it is our responsibility. And I honestly feel that this is 100% true, but it is our responsibility to give back not only to Ducks Unlimited and Delta and OFAH and all of those wonderful organizations that's out there trying to preserve this way of life for us, but it's also important for us to give back and to try and bring that new generation in, because for no other reason other than this. Listen, if you go out on a hunt and somebody, the dude that's next to you, and he's screwing up your hunt because he's doing something boneheadish, it's because he wasn't educated. Yep. And that's what it comes down to. He wasn't educated, wasn't mentored the proper way. I keep saying him, but he or she. And I honestly do. I know Phil is involved in it. Dave, who's not on the call, Dave, same as you, gives up a ton of his time for youth up in Kincard and trying to do the same thing. So it is our responsibility. And it's not a nice to do. It's what we need to do. We need to give back, and we need, I can't remember who the guest was, fellas, but we did have a guest on one time, and I'm ashamed that I can't remember, but they had even said to us that a lot of the times what's happening is that a kid from school or a kid's friend is into hunting. That kid wants to get into hunting. The parents are not hunters, never ever been hunters, so they're never going to get exposed to it, but they have this desire to want to get out there. And if it isn't for people like us and like you, Matt, that are doing these programs, these kids are never going to get a chance to take part in this. And it is something that we really, really need to do, especially if we want to keep our firearms rights, if we want this tradition of going out and being able to put food on the table for ourselves, and this whole camaraderie that everybody talks about. Oh, it's not about the birds, it's about the camaraderie. Everybody says it, but do they honestly practice it?
Yeah.
I want to say, I think it was Anthony Smith.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, it was Anthony Smith, probably.
So let me, I want to plug just a couple of places here.
Absolutely.
They're doing a really good job. So first of all, the club that we're a part of, the Kingston District Trap Skeet and Sporting Clays Club, I feel we're doing a remarkable job in outreaching to our youth. We believe if we open up, we're actually going to run some youth specific and youth only days where we've got mentors there. So anyone can bring their kids in for free shoots and just to get to initiate the sport. The other thing, so the National Skeet Shooting Association and the Ontario Skeet Shooting Association, I'll tell you, they roll out the red carpet when they see young shooters. So typically, if you were to go to a shooting event, you're going to see pretty mature crowd. I show up, I got 3 kids in tow, and they're all ready to go. And I'll tell you, they get treated like absolute gold. So my hat's off to the National Skeet Shooting Association and the Ontario Skeet Shooting Association. So how well they treat their youth and organizing that. The reason I like those, I like that target shooting is they can do it on a sunny day, right? They can get used to shooting things when your hands aren't cold and you're not getting bit by mosquitoes. Maybe it's just an easier entry into those pieces. And so I think if you're not a member of, if you like shooting birds at all, you probably do. If you're listening to this, or you're watching this, if you're not a member of some type of a clay club, trap club, skeet club, sporting clays club, go be a part of one. I guarantee there'll be some folks there that can lend you a hand. I guarantee that they want to welcome youth shooters. It's I used to think before I was a member of target shooting clubs that it was maybe a little bit stuffy crowd, and my experience is absolutely not. Very welcoming and very open to new shooters and kids, because they typically get it that the more members they have shooting in the public, the better it is for their sport. Yeah,
no, good point. And when I was a member, the same thing of the club here in Kingston, and it wasn't because of anything with the club. It was just I didn't have the time. Again, brilliant people and people that honestly, when they were on the line with you and you missed, and you threw out a curse word or whatever, they were the ones that said, "Hey, listen, this is what you did.
Yeah.
Here, next time, here, do that one again, and try this time."
And we talked about gun fit earlier. So if you show up to our gun club, there's some beautiful guns. There's everything from your $300 pump guns to your $30,000 over-unders. And I'll tell you, as long as you're polite and ask correctly, you'll be allowed to shoot every single one of those guns. And if you go up to the owner and say, "I'm a new shooter, I'm trying to figure out which one of these fit me the best," they'll happily say, "Here you go.
Yeah.
Give it a try," right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Make sure you're shooting factory ammo out of it. That's all I'd say. But
yeah,
leave your reloads for yours.
Yeah, no, that excellent points, and it really is. And Matt, awesome that you came on tonight. And I think that anybody that's listening that consider themselves a shooter, I think everyone would be able to walk away with something from this episode on a trick that maybe they could use to make their shooting a little bit better, or anything. But they should be able to walk away from this episode with a little bit of extra knowledge or something to think about.
Yeah, I think those three things, right? Gun fit, lead type, and then your focus on the target. Those three things, if you got those figured out, more clays are going to break, more birds are going to fall.
And I just wanted to go back to the gun fit, and I guess probably use an Army term, dumb it down. But let's say you've decided, okay, I'm going to make that purchase. I'm going to go buy a gun. I'm going to go to my local gun dealer, and this is how I'm going to walk up to my gun dealer, and I'm going to go, "This is how much money I've got to spend. I need a gun." What's the new shooter looking for in his gun? What everybody says, we see it on Facebook all the time. "Hey, what's your thoughts on this gun?" And someone will always say, "Listen, shoulder it. That's the way to know." So like the talk is true.
What you're looking for when you shoulder it. So when you're at the store and you put it on your shoulder and you find a strong cheek weld, right? So you put that stock right in the base of your cheek, right where it's got to be, and then just look up there with both eyes, and then close your left eye. And if you're looking at the safety, or you're looking at the hump in the gun, the back of the receiver, that gun doesn't fit you. If you can line up and see perfectly down the rib, and if there's two posts on there and they line up like a little figure eight, like a snowman, then that gun fits you perfectly. If you can't see those two, and now that doesn't mean it's not the right gun if it's in your price range, but recognize that, oh, if I lift my cheek up just a little bit, now it fits. And so then I'm a $25 purchase from Amazon on one of those Beartooth or rapid
Right.
cones away from a solution.
Now, somebody told me one time, and tell me if this is right. So somebody told me if you're shouldering a gun, so you know you've got, I'll say it at the low carry right now. You've got the gun down at the low carry. You're in that gun shop, and you pick something on the wall of the gun shop, and let's pretend that's my target. If you can pull that gun up to and aim it at that target, and you're looking straight down the barrel, that gun is fitted. That gun's a good fit for you. You may have to adjust here and there, but
So the only thing I'd say is I get really scared when I hear the word aim, because what aim means is you're starting to point it like a rifle. So what you do is there's a light socket on the wall, and if you grab the gun and can bring the gun up to your face and get a proper mount here, and your eyes never get off of that light socket, you probably got a good fitting gun. If the gun popped up in your field of view because it's not the right drop at comb, then you got a bit of an issue.
awesome.
So, right. So if it like so if I come up here, if I go like that and I can still see everything, that's a good fitting gun. If I go up and it's like this, that's no good. Right. If it starts to cover that dominant eye, but again, it might be a $25 fix away from getting it right. So, you know, because sometimes we get our hands on a used gun, right? And we make it fit us.
Yeah.
It's the right price. And I say buy it every time, because you can probably make it work for you.
Yeah, it's funny. Like every year, like Damien just said, like we see all over Facebook. Oh, okay, my budget's $1,000. My budget's $1,200. I'm looking at these 3 guns. Which one do I buy? And my response every single time to these posts, all 3 of those were great choices.
Yeah.
The only good choice is the one that fits you. And the amount of people that jump on and like, you know, they like and thumbs up and whatever is like astronomical. Like, yeah, they're great guns. You know, you got some great choices lined up. One of those might completely and utterly shit the bed for you. And like and the guys know, like I buy a lot of guns because I like guns. And I've been through guns. Like, I like guns. I used to have a Browning Maxis, and I bought one when I'd say within the first couple of years they came out. It was an amazing gun. I love the gun. I couldn't hit the fucking ground if I dropped it. Legit. Like I played with the shims left, right, up, down, all over the place. That gun was not meant for me.
Yeah.
I've shot Berettas extremely well. I've shot Benelli's extremely well, but like that Maxis, amazing gun. No fault of the manufacturer. They're a phenomenal firearm. Couldn't hit shit if my life depended on it.
Yeah, it just wasn't for you, right?
No.
I had one of those.
It is what it is.
Too.
And I've got an old 67 Auto 5 Magnum 20, shoot like a fucking barn on fire.
That's awesome.
Like I couldn't miss something if my life depended on it.
So I'll bet you when we're done this, go grab it out of your safe and point it at the mirror, and you watch. That gun's gonna fit you perfectly.
Fucking 100%.
Right? It's just gonna be right on there. You're gonna see your eye bounce perfectly on top of that barrel. Like even if you see like 90% of your eye, believe it or not, that bottom 10% is gonna make you peek up. Your eye's gonna go, I gotta see the whole thing or I'm gonna get eaten again, right?
Well, I think part of it is I'm also shooting bismuth, and you don't want to fucking miss at that price.
Yeah.
See, there he goes. Just gotta throw that out, eh? Gotta throw out that he's shooting bismuth.
You got to.
Expensive cigars.
You gotta shoot bismuth.
Yeah. Billy and his expensive cigars and bismuth.
Hey.
Well, and
you gotta enjoy the
feel free, Damien, if you want to throw my contact information out there for anybody who wants to have a chat about a gun fit.
Absolutely.
US, Canada, doesn't matter. We can go do that and have a conversation. I'd be happy to.
Yeah, absolutely, Matty. I will. I'll be sure to make sure to have your contact info just in case anybody has some questions, or if there's something that you said that they just can't get their head wrapped around and maybe need you to talk them through it a little bit more. Yeah. I'm sure they would appreciate it, and I would appreciate it if you were able to help them out too. Because again, at the end of the day, it's all about education, and we need more people out there, and we need more people shooting. We need more people being advocates for gun rights, and
yeah,
we need safer, more ethical people, because as you know, we are our own worst enemy, and the only way to fix it is from within, right? So
Well, there's a couple spots I'm pretty easy to find on the social media. So personal, there's a personal Facebook page. There's a Clay Target Coaching Facebook page, and even go to our Kingston Shotgun Sports is our club page, and we'd be happy. Just put those things in; they'll pop right up.
yeah,
And,
I'll be sure to add those
Perfect.
into on the social media posts once
that'd be great.
once we make the show. Matty, buddy, thank you so much. This was a wealth of knowledge, and I'm really, really glad that we were able to make this happen, because I know it's a couple cancellations and then there was a Leaf game, and we couldn't, our poor old Leafs, Matty, couldn't do it, and we got two Habs fans here. So
You know what I did there? You know what I did? I PVR'd game 2. I just keep watching it every day.
Matty, I know a couple of guys making a lot of money. You could probably use some shooting tips on the Leafs.
Yeah.
I think they're looking for caddy.
I don't think their ability to shoot is in question. I think their desire to want to shoot is what's in question.
Hey, Leafs 2022, right? I'm there already.
Every year.
Spoken like a true Leafs fan.
Yeah, bought the shirt. We're good to go.
Awesome. Quick around the table. Matty, I'll give you the last word, buddy. Mark.
So Matt, good having you on. You're a wealth of information. I mean, I know I've got some things I could probably learn off you. So hopefully when I'm down to Damien sometime, we cross paths and I can pick your brain on a couple things. Just to go back to something you were talking about, the whole your peripherals catching the fast moving targets.
Yeah.
And that it's kind of been worked out of the gene pool from survival and whatnot, because you would have got eaten by the saber-tooth tigers and whatnot.
Right. Yep.
It's worked back in. It's worked back in to the gene pool for the slow ones, and they're called vegans. I'm just gonna leave it at that.
I hear you.
Right on. Philly.
Matt, appreciate you coming on again. Like, you know, everything you touched on, we hope to God that, you know, it reaches some of our millions of listeners. And like, for the love of Christ, for those guys out there, it's not what you spend, it's what fits.
Mhm.
So please buy a gun that fits. That, like, we can't stress that enough, and that'll definitely make your time outdoors and your experiences a hell of a lot more better and enjoyable, knowing that, you know, you can put that gun on target and you know you're going to hit what you're pointing at, and, you know, pass that on for generations and keep the sport alive.
Yeah.
Ryan.
Matt, thanks for coming on. Great chat with you. I don't think we've ever had somebody as informed as you on a topic, and I think it's excellent. It's something like everybody, you know, sometimes we talk about calling or dog handling, and doesn't mean everybody waterfowl hunts or bird hunts has a dog, but I mean, a firearm is the number one tool for the sport. So I think it's something that's really gonna affect everybody. And myself personally, I'm looking forward to really kind of get into a range here and kind of try to practice some of your preachings here and see some of these tips and tricks and try to improve myself. So thanks a lot for coming on, man.
Right on. Well, you know, Phil, Ryan, Damien, Mark, you guys, God bless you for doing this, having the show. It's amazing. I love it. Great forum. You know, gives us, I feel like I'm at the duck camp. It's not even duck season, right? So I like that. And keep doing the good work, because the more of these things that we have going out there, the more people can learn and get introduced to the sport. And, you know, one of the things I do like with all this social media these days is that I've connected with experts from around the world just because I have an interest, and I've yet to have somebody say that little bit of advice is below you or above you, or it's going to cost you something. Like our community is so willing to give, and so I really like that, and I think it's important that we keep doing it. Feel free, guys, if you've got any questions from the panel, let me know, because I know your outreach is going to be 10, 20,000 fold from what just mine would be. So I'd be happy to work with any one of you. And let's keep doing some good work. You know, the more people we can out there putting lead or bismuth or steel down range, the better.
Absolutely. Matty, buddy, thank you once again. Like Ryan, Mark, and Phil has already touched on, a great amount of knowledge, some awesome tricks that now it got me wondering because, you know, I don't think I honestly don't think I focus the way that I should be focusing. So something that I need to work on, and something that perhaps I'm going to have to re-up that membership to the skeet club again and get back out there and find some times.
For you.
Yeah, find
The
some
locker's
time.
ready.
Yeah, I know, buddy. I know. Everybody, again, even if this is the first time you've listened to this show, you should be able to figure out right now, we are as genuine as they come. We are as advertised. We're not smoke and mirrors. We are not pretending to be anybody that we're not. We are a group of friends that, honest to God, love one another's company, and we're just doing whatever we can to make sure that our sport and our lifestyle continues on. With that, this was episode number 2 of season 2 of the Union 0430. Matt Pomeroy, thank you so much for coming on. Fellas, thank you once again for coming on and hanging out. This is our Thursday nights, and I love them. Until next week, big love.